right, it's another edition of Bull in the Basement and another episode of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame series celebrating 40 years of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame with a 2021 Buffalo Music Hall of Fame graduate. Tonawanda native, spent a bunch of years in Nashville, played in how many bands, Robin?
Oh my God, 100 million bands, including, in Nashville, I played in a number of bands, but here in Buffalo, back in the 80s was my time. Let me tell you, pink hair and everything, but played with Ice Nine and Pepperwood Green, Clockworks, and The Touch, and it was just, the Buffalo scene was amazing back in the 80s, so, and then when I moved to Nashville, I played, I had an indie record deal with a band called Hurricane Jane, and then in Nashville, I was one of the founding members of Nashville recording artists Mustang Sally, so it was all fun.
I mean, in Nashville, my gosh, how far is that place coming? We'll get to that in a second, but
yeah,
I have to introduce you. Obviously, we haven't even gotten there yet. Robin Grandin from Tonawanda, 2021 Buffalo Music Hall of Fame inductee. Obviously, a ton of bands. Now, I got to ask you a couple things. First of all, before we get to your sort of adult fame and fortune in your music career, how did you get into music? What was sort of your inspiration? I know, listen, when we're all in school as school kids, everybody's made to do music one way or the other, right? So,
exactly.
and generally, what do you get? You get like the trumpet, you get a clarinet, you get a string instrument. Sometimes, if you're lucky, like I was, you get some percussion, but generally, right, you're some sort of orchestral instrument generally. So what was yours out of the gate?
Well, it was flute. It was flute. I played the flute. All little girls wanted to play the flute. And so I played the flute, and I was in chorus, and I loved singing and acting and all of that stuff. So basically it was both of those things that really inspired me. And I started writing songs at an extremely early age. When I was like 6, I started writing and listening to music and writing songs, little things. By the time I was 9 and 10, I orchestrated an entire village polka for my elementary school orchestra. So I wanted to play all the instruments, and I wanted to write songs. And then, of course, there were the Beatles. I wanted to be in the Beatles.
Can you imagine?
I know. Hey, I'd look pretty good in the Beatles,
right?
But they were awful cute. But anyway.
So I mean, were your parents musicians? I mean, where did the love for music come from?
I honestly don't even know. I mean, my parents, even though they played music all the time, 8-track tapes was the big thing when my parents were, a young couple, and then I came along. But I don't know. They just played music, and I was just always around it. So it was comforting, and it was something that I could do. So it was just a cool thing.
But did your friends play it, like, or was it just like kind of your thing?
It was my thing. Yeah. It was my thing. And then
that's cool.
When I started writing songs, honest to God, my next door neighbors in the summertime, they would clap after I wrote one of my songs, and I would be singing it, sitting on my bed playing my guitar, and my next door neighbors would clap. It was like, oh my God, everybody in the neighborhood's listening to me. So it was sort of fun, though.
That was your earliest exposure, and obviously there was a comfortability with it because if there hadn't been, then maybe you wouldn't have pursued it to the level that you did. So if you hadn't pursued, so at what point were you pursuing music? How old were you when you were like, I really like this, I'm really good at this, and I kind of want to pursue it sort of professionally?
Probably in junior high, because I actually was taking advanced bio in high school and junior high and high school. I was taking like advanced biology, and I wanted to be a doctor, and I wanted to, I didn't want to be a nurse. I wanted to be a doctor. And then I started singing, and then I started writing, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, forget being a doctor. I want to be a star. I want to be a rock and roll love goddess. It was just one of those things where I just switched. I just knew.
Isn't that amazing too? Because in 2022, that's like every kid now. Every kid wants to be a star
Yeah.
somehow, some way, whether it's music, whether it's acting, whether it's
Yep.
sports. They want to be famous. Every single kid. You go see,
It's true.
right? Yeah.
It's true. It's true. And I mean, that's the whole goal, being famous. But nowadays, being famous doesn't necessarily, as you get older, being famous doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, you make a lot of money, you drive the really great cars, you get a lot of fame and fortune by playing on the big concert stages. You know, it means something else now. As you get older, it definitely means that. And yeah, I played the big stages. I've played in front of 40,000 people on a regular basis in Nashville or out of Nashville. Nobody plays a 40,000 stage in a person stage in Nashville anymore. You got to go out of town and go out on the road to do it. And we did. So it was all good. But, you know, fame and fortune means a whole bunch of different things now. But
Yeah,
we'll
for
get
sure.
to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to it.
Yeah. So, you know, your career speaks for itself. I mean, you're in a ton of bands here locally. You go to Nashville, you have tons of success there. And part of, I think, the mission of this Buffalo Music Hall of Fame series through this podcast is to expose the impact that people that are either a part of or in as an inductee like you are to the
Yeah.
Buffalo Music Hall of Fame have. And I'm talking
Yeah.
not only musically. I mean, when we talked to Tony Casuccio and Tom Lawrence the other day, you know, we were talking a lot about that, about, you know, it is more than the music. Now, the music is amazing. And some of the things that people are going to learn progressively as we go episode by episode of this 40th anniversary Buffalo Music Hall of Fame podcast series, that's all well and good. But pretty much everybody that's part of the hall in one way or another is giving back to the community in one way or another. We're going to speak to a lot of the things that you have coming up too, but I still want to stay on your history, though. I want to stay on your history. Tell me about your first band.
Oh my gosh, it was called Pepperwood Green. Okay, and the stupidest thing is, well, my very first gig ever was at the old Tralfamadore Cafe in the basement down on Main Street, in the basement. And I played a gig there, and I got approached by these guys, and they asked me, they said, "Do you want to be in a band?" And of course, here I am, like 18 years old. I don't drink, I don't smoke, never have, never did. And I was hanging around in a bar playing music, and I said, yeah, I want to join a band. Of course, my parents were livid, but I still joined anyway. And that band, Pepperwood Green, did all original music. Our very first gig was at the old After Dark in Lockport. And I don't know, it was a huge thing. It was a big concert. And all original music. It was sort of rhythm and blues meets Genesis meets Joni Mitchell.
Wow.
And that's the kind of stuff I was writing. And you could still hear some of that old stuff on Spotify or something like that. But SoundCloud, I guess, SoundCloud. But yeah, all very interesting. And the strangest thing is my maiden name was Green, Greene. And there these people are with a band already named Pepperwood Green. It was meant to be. My name and the band name was like perfect. It was all meant to be. It was crazy.
Well, so that's strange, but I would think back. So what are we talking about? What years are we talking about?
Oh my God.
Sorry.
1900.
Right. I need that as a point of reference only because it must have been kind of strange for you to be as a woman to be in that type of band, right? At that time?
Absolutely. Yeah. And not only that, but I'm a player. So I just wasn't like a singer in a band. It was 1977. So for 2 years, I was in Pepperwood Green, and I played flute, I played keyboards, piano, I played guitar. I just played everything, and I wrote the songs. These huge, mammoth, progressive rock songs. And I was also in college. I went to Villa Maria College for music and had a double major in voice and flute, and then Damon College after that. So I was totally into progressive rock and playing as many instruments as I possibly could.
Please tell me at one time or another throughout your career, you've had a conversation with Ian Anderson.
Yeah. Oh no, I've never had a conversation with Ian Anderson, but I do Jethro Tull.
I bet, of course.
Trust me on that one.
Yeah.
I admire him absolutely, like you can't believe. And my husband and I went to a concert. I think it was in Albany, not too long ago, and we went to a Jethro Tull Ian Anderson concert, and there we were, front row. Well, no, not front row. 8 rows back, center. I could hear him breathe, and it was like, oh my God, yes, yes, the flute god is here. So he was just amazing. He was totally amazing. His show, absolutely choreographed to the second. You know, that's how I want to be. But yes,
You were
Tull.
you were so close. You saw snots running down his nose.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Mm.
I did. And I saw that locomotive breath. Damn it. It was
Okay.
good.
So there's your first band, and then you did a bunch of other bands, and then why Nashville?
Well,
how and why did that happen?
well, in between all the Buffalo bands, I had a lot of friends and I met friends who were in the band Rainbow, who used to be a band called the Country Melodiers. They were from the Buffalo area. And Rainbow.
So wait, let's interrupt very quickly. So we're not talking Richie Blackmore, Rainbow.
No,
okay.
no.
Just to be clear.
Yeah, we're not talking Richie Blackmore's. Rainbow was a band that was based out of the South Towns, where I live right now. I live in Silver Creek, and their home base was in the South Towns. But wait a minute, the cool part about it is they used to be a hard rock band in Buffalo called Monolith that was totally highly respected. They did a 180 and switched and went and did country. And as that band evolved, they went into more of a variety type of band. So they could play more fairs and festivals and Las Vegas and the casino market. So 12 years down the road, they lost one of their members, and they said, what we need is somebody like Robin in the band. Well, here I am. And I had 2 weeks to learn how to play the bass guitar and get out on the road and play in Reno, Nevada at one of the biggest damn casinos that is in Nevada, in the Nevada circuit. So from that point on, I went out on the road and played the Nevada circuit, played Dallas, Texas, played up in Edmonton, did Canadian tours. It was sort of cool, but that was the band that actually took me from Buffalo to the road. And then when the band broke up, I got an offer to play in Nashville, Tennessee. And because I met another band that was in one of the casinos that we were playing in. So I said, I think I'll do it. And at that point, when I was in the band Rainbow and playing casinos, we were also doing a little bit of country music. I fell in love with country music. And I just sort of put that thought out there and said, hey, I'd like to be in a place where I could do more country music. Well, don't you know it? I got the job offer to go to Nashville, packed up everything and went to Nashville.
Okay.
And that's what happened.
What was the response of the folks in Rainbow when you said, hey, I'm out?
Oh, no, we had broken up.
Oh, you were okay. You were done. Okay.
Yeah, we had broken up before that. So I just was sort of searching anyway of where I was going to go, and that's where I went.
Here's another question. Now I know nothing about Rainbow.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming you were the only woman in the band.
No. 2 girls, 2 guys.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So you at least had a wing woman, a partner in crimes, somebody to hang with,
Yep.
right? I mean,
and here's the other clincher. This is an interesting item. Well, all of those folks are very, very good friends. As a matter of fact, they are now all my relatives, because 20 years down the road, I come home for a visit my friends in Rainbow. There's their other brother, Dave. I married Dave. So now, but that's not all. So now my sister-in-law lives right next door to me, Dave's sister. So it's like we're all together. And
Wow.
yeah, and Jackie, my sister-in-law, also sings with me at this point. She's wonderful, wonderful singer. So we're both together singing. So
All right. So
anyway,
you got to share, before I get to Mustang Sally. I'm sure there were some rainbow stories. You got one you can share about being on the road, maybe one place that was completely outrageous, or something you saw or happened at a show, or anything like that.
well, I tell you, there's a whole bunch. We always ran into the coolest people there. We used to play Dallas, Texas all the time, and we played the Texas State Fair every single year for many years, and that was a trip and a half because we represented General Motors, and we were in the car building, and there were all these beautiful models, and then there we were, these crazy looking girls and guys from, we, believe me, we had some cool clothes. As a matter of fact, that was one of the highlights of playing Dallas, Texas, is that you can go to a brand spanking new mall every day for 21 days without repeating. Yes, that's my kind of place. Anyway, the deal is that people like Crazy Ray, the guy, the football guy, with the
Yeah.
the faucet. He would walk in, and we got pictures with him. We have pictures with Marine and Army bands. I don't have pictures with ZZ Top, but they were playing the Cotton Bowl right on the grounds when we were doing the fair, and they all walk in, and they're standing there looking at you. It's like, holy moly, look at this. We just had a great time. Those times are priceless, absolutely priceless.
But that was just the beginning, because now you're getting your air quotes big break. You're going to Nashville to be part of. Now you went to be part of Mustang Sally, is that right? Or
well, I played in other bands prior to that, and was on the road all through Canada, all through the United States, and I had an indie record deal with my band Hurricane Jane.
That's right.
And then I stopped wanting to be on the road. I was on the road for like 15-20 years. It was just a lot, and I decided just to stay in Nashville because we were always based out of Nashville. And I came back and just stayed there. And all of a sudden I got a call from Lisa Romeo, who I met on the road in Laughlin, Nevada. And she said, "Hey, you want to play?" I said, "Yeah, all right." So we played at the Hall of Fame. There was a bar called the Hall of Fame a while back, and we played down there in Nashville, and we decided we were going to put a band together. We got the other girls in, and we did the recording act Mustang Sally, which was quite extremely amazing, especially when we opened and played with George Jones, and he's right next to me, put his arm around me, and he looks at me and he goes, "Yeah." It's like, oh my God, it's George Jones. So great experiences there. Got to know a lot of people, a lot of musicians, and it's just the best.
Yeah, and that Nashville was a lot different than it is today. I mean, today it's insane, right? I mean, now Nashville is, it doesn't matter what music genre you're in, you're still going to Nashville, right? You could be somebody in metal and you're going to Nashville. You can be somebody, it doesn't matter. Everybody's going to Nashville, to the point where probably, I'm guessing, it's probably a bit oversaturated, I would think, where back then, I mean, it was the hub, right? That was it for country, was that, right?
Exactly. You could walk down the main streets of Nashville, Tennessee, and it was crowded at certain times, but other times it was just a normal city.
Yeah.
You could drive 5 miles out and be in the country.
Yeah.
And people who are in your apartment complex or down the street, they might have record deals, or they're other musicians. I mean, I know some of the most amazing musicians who are still my friends to this day, and they live in Nashville, and they look at Billy Sheehan. Billy Sheehan's in Nashville now. He wasn't there when I was there, but now he's living in in an area that I used to frequent myself. So, and there's a whole bunch of folks.
Yeah, so you work with a lot of big names. You mentioned George Jones, Brooks and Dunn, Ricky Skaggs, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and the list goes on and on and on and on. I have to ask you, when you toured, did you ever have a a Blues Brothers moment? Like, did you ever play in a bar where you were literally behind chicken wire fencing and, an old like roadhouse country bar in the middle of nowhere? You're from Buffalo, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
are way out of place.
Yeah.
Playing music that was nowhere near as popular back then as it is now, right?
Yeah.
And when your place is down there, I'm sure they're like, "What? You're from
Yeah.
Buffalo, right?" I
Yeah.
mean, walk me through that. I mean, talk to me about some of the venues you played.
Well, I could tell you, not when I was with Mustang Sally, things were, we had a bus, we had a nice, first we had a van, then we took some trips on the bus, and we played in some nicer places. We got to a gig, we played a big arena, and things were good in that respect. But before Mustang Sally, when I was in Nashville playing with Hurricane Jane or with some other bands, some of those places, yes, they could have used chicken wire. Because usually I was in that respect, in Hurricane Jane, I was the only girl in the band, and it was unusual, especially when I played Thompson, Manitoba, which is 10 hours out of the Arctic Circle, and and I was one of two girls in the entire club, and we were not the headlining band. It was the strippers that was the
Oh,
headlining
come
band.
on.
So you can imagine most of the guys in this club it's been a while. It was a while since they saw any women whatsoever. So I can't tell you.
Well, I mean, listen, I would be willing to bet that most of the great musicians / comedians, performers of all time have at one time or another performed in a strip club. So there you go.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Right?
right. And there are a lot of strip clubs, in not only in Canada but in the United States. That, I mean, that's the draw right there. That's the draw. Music is just an incidental thing,
Right.
unfortunately. But anyway,
So an incredible career. Obviously, we've talked a lot about it. Last thing about Nashville, I'm assuming at one time or another you played the Grand Ole Opry, and probably many times.
well, actually, that's the only place that I honestly never stepped foot on, is the Ryman. I stepped foot on it, but not to play. It was not in the cards for me. But I've played every other club in Nashville, Tennessee. I had house gigs down on Printers Alley. I played the 16th Avenue Cafe. I played Tootsie's. I played, you name it, I played it. So it was great experience.
Is that for you? And as you were there and going through your career and your progression, was that a disappointment to you that you never got to do that? I mean, and do you still look back and think, damn it, I lived there for that long, I never got to play on that stage? How does that not happen?
Well, it's a disappointment, but on the other hand, I consider that every other place that I played was equally as important as playing at the Opry. I've been on the Opry stage tons of times because a lot of my friends played in those bands and played for folks, the recording artists. Played for my played guitar and steel. My steel friends who are steel players, they played for all the big acts, and it was always wonderful to go and see them play. And that's a whole other experience. Have you ever been on the Opry stage?
I've never been to the Grand Ole Opry.
Wow.
I've only been to Nashville once, and I did not go to the Opry, and I kicked myself for not going.
It's a great experience, and try to get behind stage if you get a chance, because you'll notice that all the amplifiers are faced backwards,
Yeah.
so that they can get a great sound coming off. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
besides the point, but still, not a disappointment, because I consider every place that, like I said, every place that I've played equally as important, and they're all great experiences.
Yeah.
And just,
Do you think because back then you were, was there a, I'm trying to figure out how to say this correct and phrase it right, but was there a place for women if you were a player? I mean, obviously there's the time you go down the laundry list of incredible female vocalists in country
mhm.
music. Do you know where I'm going with this? Was there a place
I do.
if you're a bass player or you're a guitar player or a drummer or a steel player and you're a woman in Nashville then, was there a place for you in those bigger bands if you wanted it or not just yet?
Not really a place, but yet, because when I got there, and this is so true, there were two chick bass players. There was Allison Prescott and there was me. And I was playing with Mustang Sally. She was playing, she's a good session player, great session player. By the time I left Nashville, there were tons of female bass players and of course tons of female singers. And and the market is very saturated at this point. But when I first got there, I think it was an unusual thing. I think it was so unusual that maybe you didn't all the time get those gigs. I know I had a friend, Bobby Babbitt. I don't know if you remember his name. He was one of the Funk Brothers. He tried for years and years and years to get into all the recording studios, to be part of the A list, and it took him a really long time
Yeah.
to get there. So as far as girls go, it was a little harder.
Yeah, for
A
sure.
little harder.
So let's fast forward now because we are started this talking about your impact and what you do outside of music. So two
Yeah.
things. First of all, talk very quickly about Music to Remember Western New York, what that is, why you came up with it.
Okay, here's the scoop. When I moved back to Buffalo in 2006, I moved back for my family. Of course, I got married to Dave, so I moved back because of that. I still wanted to keep, I still had a home in Nashville, so I was going back and forth for a while. And my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. My dad had passed away 2 months after my husband and I got married, and my mom, diagnosed with Alzheimer's, was declining over the years. She was put into a facility, and I wanted to give back to the facility. And being an entertainer, being a musician, I said, you know what? I want to do something. So I put together this huge event and had 6 different locations within the facility and had all my musician friends from this area come in and play. It was a great day. Gino McManus and Frank Corsani, they played, and a lot of some of the other Buffalo Music Hall of Famers played. It was just a wonderful day of music, and it sort of caught on. And I did it more on a regular basis. I also did it at another facility, and I realized that is something that I really loved. I love to see the difference in the Alzheimer's patients and the dementia patients when you play music. I love to use that healing power of music to make people happy, to see them dance, to see them have a bright spot in their day. So I started playing facilities, and that's how I got to Music to Remember. The whole event, the first event was called Music to Remember. So it just sort of fell into place to call the non-for-profit that I created Music to Remember Western New York. I currently play about 20 to 25 facilities.
That's awesome.
I have accounts there. I never thought that my path of music would lead me back here, but it did.
You had a
It
higher
did.
calling
And
for sure.
and you know what? And I have to say thanks to the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, because at that point I was just beginning to know everybody in the hall, and Richard Sargent invited me to be part of the musician medics. Well, the musician medics eventually morphed and joined and partnered with Music to Remember to expand the outreach, and that's exactly what we did. And now Music to Remember is a partnered program of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. So, and they are so supportive. The rest of the folks in the hall are just totally supportive of everything that we're trying to do.
And an extension of that is happening on June the 12th, the Hall of Fame Heels event. So talk a little bit about that, where it's going to be, what the lineup's going to look like,
Okay.
how people can get involved.
That is so, so cool. Well, since all my friends are musicians and I always hire them to come and play at these Music to Remember events, I said, last year, I said, you know what we should do? we should definitely have a combo concert and combo events. Let's see if we can really reach out to the community on a huge scale and see how much we can help everybody. So in the back of this little pea mind here, I said, let's join together. And this is what we did in 2021. Music to Remember Western New York, Bridget's Battle Foundation for breast cancer, and also Western New York Drummers for Homeless People. So I got 3 non-for-profits together, and we had a thing called 3 for a Cause event. Well, I sort of brought everybody over into the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. I'm the communications chair for the hall, and you know, I have access to a lot of names, and I've made a lot of friends like you and so many other folks. And I said, let's do an umbrella program called Hall of Fame Heals, and let's bring these other 2 non-for-profits in, and let's do this every year. And that's exactly what we're doing. June 12th at the Cave on Military Road. We're bringing all these 3 non-for-profits, and wait till you hear this. Every single band that's playing is and are inducted members of the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. The Unity Band, Allison Pipitone, the Boys of Summer, Only Human, and Patty Parks. And not only that, I've got more. And not only that, Tom Lawrence, class of 2012, is going to be one of the MCs, along with my very dear sister, Paula D'Amico, the producer of AM Buffalo. So it's going to be a great, great day of fundraising. And just think of it. Here we are, Buffalo Music Hall of Fame partnered programs reaching out to the Western New York community. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and it's a great room, by the way. If anyone's never been there, it is a great room.
It is a great room.
So I can only imagine, because it's not really huge. It's gonna be a tight squeeze in there, because you're gonna get a lot of people getting in there. That is such a good room, and obviously it benefits so many great causes. So obviously, if people go to Buffalo Music Hall of Fame, bmhof.org, I'm assuming they can find information on the show there, right?
Yep, you can find information on there, but usually our Facebook page has a lot of that stuff happening too. But
that's right.
You can find out about the partnered programs, each one of us, on the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame website. You know, I know Anthony's going to be there, president, and of course Tom will be there, and so many of the other inducted members. And I have to say that we are just beginning to rev it up at the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. We've got so much in store this year. Every year gets more and more exciting for the hall.
Yeah, this is the 40th. I was going to say this is the 40th year, and I know you guys have aspirations of joining some of the other halls to make one giant sort of entertainment hall in Buffalo, which you hope happens sooner than later. So June 12th, it's going to be amazing. Robin, it was awesome to see you, my friend. And I'm so excited about the event, about all the things that you're doing with the hall and your induction, obviously, last year. It was a lot of fun here in episode 2 of our Buffalo Music Hall of Fame series.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for helping all of us at the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame Heals, and everything that we do. Thank you for helping us spread the word.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Great seeing you.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.